I don't know about you, but I'm all about working smart, not hard. And that has paid me tenfold because over here in podcast world, I'm all about making sure that I am focusing on the things that are actually going to grow my podcast, which by the way, I talk about every time, which is SEO. But one of the things that I do to make sure that my podcast episodes have a lot more reach and that I'm spending time in the right places in the interrupts is to focus on Pinterest. So today I'm going to share my strategy with you on how to make sure that your podcast episodes have a lot more downloads by leveraging Pinterest. Let's get started. So I just want to start off by saying that one of my biggest pet peeves is when I'm in Facebook groups and people are like, how do I grow my podcast? And all of the answers are get on social media and do reels and do TikToks and this and that and the other. And while I think it is a fantastic idea for you to recycle your podcast episodes into all these platforms, I do not think it's a wise idea for you to count on these platforms alone to grow your podcast, because you grow a podcast inside of a podcast, except there is one search engine, which most people think it's a social media platform, but it's not. And that is Pinterest. Now, why do I love Pinterest? This because it is a visual search engine. So you get to pair really beautiful graphics with really amazing keywords to make sure that people are finding your podcast episodes. So let me give you the recipe to make sure that you're making the most out of Pinterest, because here's what I find again and again. Pinterest is a long-term game. So anytime that we're talking about anything SEO related, we are talking the long-term game. Like these are search engines and they need to understand what your content is all about. And they need to understand, okay, what are these keywords? How we're going to place this person and this and that and the other. So you do need to give it time. So the glue that holds all of these strategies together is consistency, because if you show up on Pinterest for a month and you think that you're going to go viral, like listen, with God, anything's possible. So I don't want to keep you from dreaming big. However, statistically, you just have to give these platforms time. Also, I just want to say that not all of your pins are going to be viral pins, and that's okay. You are going to have pins that do extremely well, and you're going to have pins that don't. And that is just part of the game. It's just a matter of optimizing, see what's working, doing more of it. But in order for you to get that kind of data and for you to understand how to actually leverage Pinterest, guess what? You need to spend time on the platform and you need to be consistent. With that being said, the number one tip that I have to give you is for you to, of course, focus on the visual aspect, because aesthetics do matter over on Pinterest. So if you don't have any graphic design skills, or if you think you do, but every time you put out something, you get crickets, then I'm excited to share with you that I launched my podcast template shop. And inside of the shop, you're going to find my podcast pack, which has Pinterest templates in it. Not only does it have Pinterest templates, it has templates for Instagram and Facebook. It has templates for your podcast cover art. It's so many other things that you can really benefit from. So make sure that you go check that out so that you can have a really amazing cohesive brand across all platforms, so people know exactly who you are and you're establishing your authority, especially on a place like Pinterest where visuals and aesthetics are everything. Step number 2 is for you to make sure that you are using good hooks. So on the actual pin that you design, make sure that you have a good hook in there, because if your pins are beautiful, but there's no writing on them and people don't know why they should click on it, then they're not going to click on it. So make sure that you have a really good hook on the pin itself so that people are more likely to take action and click over to your pin and check out your podcast episode. The third tip, of course, and this is where SEO comes in, is for you to make sure that your title is a searchable title. So this is not the place for you to get creative. So the thing that I love about Pinterest is, of course, you get to be strategic, but also very creative. So you get to combine the best of both worlds. And your creativity is going to come across in the pin itself, in the design itself. But the strategic side comes in the title and also the description. So your description, you're allowed up to 500 characters. And I like to write full descriptions to make sure that I'm using an assortment of keywords. So I usually go for the main keywords that I have in mind. And then I think about what are supporting keywords that I can add to the description that are ultimately going to give me more visibility inside of this app. So making sure that your title has really juicy keywords and it is a searchable title versus a cute, clever title, and making sure that your description has a lot of juicy keywords and you're using up all those 500 characters is going to be key. Now, let me just sidebar here for a second and say, please do not just copy a bunch of keywords and paste them in your description and think that's going to work for you, because it's not. Search engines are really smart and they want to make sure that the stuff that you're putting out there is actually created for human beings to enjoy, and human beings do not want to read a bunch of keyword after keyword after keyword. So make sure that you are keeping readability in mind, that you are infusing all of those keywords in your description, in your title, but make sure that it is still something that a human would enjoy reading, even though statistically speaking, nobody's really going to read your full description. Very few people do. It's important that you utilize that space to make sure that you're optimizing that for human beings, even though they're likely not going to read. Now, a super hot tip that I can give you here is that just go ahead and take the description from the show notes that you created for a podcast, because I know that if you have been hanging out with me for a hot minute, I tell you SEO optimize your podcast show notes. So because you're savvy, because you're smart, because you're listening to this podcast, you know that you can go ahead and just grab your show notes and go ahead and paste them inside of Pinterest. And that way you're not creating extra work for yourself and it is SEO optimized already. Now, when it comes to linking your content back to your podcast, there are two ways that you can go about this. You can link back to your website. So assuming that you take all of your podcast episodes and you embed them on your website, you can go ahead and just send people back to your website, which is always a great idea because it builds your website more credibility and you're getting people to actually come and spend time with you on your website, which is a piece of your real estate, something that you own. But if you don't yet have a website, I still want you to go ahead and take advantage of Pinterest to grow your podcast. So make sure that you are sending people back to your podcast episodes. Now, the problem that you're going to run in here is that you don't know if people are listening to you on Apple or if they are Android users. There's so many different platforms that they could be listening to you on. So my little bonus tip for you here is for you to go ahead and create a free account on Chartable, and you can create a link, a specific link to every podcast episode that you have. And what Chartable does is that you can set it up so that somebody who is an Apple user, when they click on that link, it'll automatically take them to the Apple Podcast app. Or if they are an Android user, they have different options that you can put. So you can put Spotify and a bunch of different other platforms that you can try. So go ahead and try both and see what works. And honestly, even in my agency, for my own Pinterest account, sometimes I'll just do pins that are sending them directly to Apple. And I'm okay trying that because I'm at a point that I can try different things. But in the beginning, I would make sure that you are being specific with where you're sending people. And one way to go ahead and make sure that you have that reach and that they're not losing anybody because they're an Android user and you're sending them to Apple is to go ahead and use the Chartable account. And again, I will leave that linked for you down below, and the free account will do. Now, let's go ahead and rewind and remember what I said in the beginning. Pinterest is the long-term game. So don't feel like you're going to do Pinterest for a month and see these crazy results. You might, but probably you won't, because you need to spend time on the platform. And when I say you need to spend time on the platform, I don't mean you need to spend time pinning recipes and cute fits. I mean actually pinning and putting your content out there and actually seeing what is working, what it's not. So having the data-driven brain is really going to pay off here and help ensure that your podcast episodes are getting the most reach. Now, don't forget that I have beautifully designed templates in my shop on my website, which I will leave linked for you down below. And there's also a juicy discount that you can take advantage of. So make sure you go check that out. Now, next week, all of my people out there who love to script their podcast episode, you're going to be in for such a treat because I'm actually breaking down how to script your podcast, because there is a way to do it. And while I personally like to riff my podcast, and that's what I recommend you do. I do understand that for some people, scripting is better for them. So I have a whole podcast episode coming up on podcast scripting. So make sure that you're subscribed so that you can go ahead and check it out. And even if you are somebody who likes to riff, who likes to just be in the flow, I promise you there are going to be tips on there that you're going to find super helpful. So make sure to check back in next week. And until next time, may you find God's love, grace, peace, and mercy. And I'll see you then. Bye.